to the Healthy Aging Show. This is Dr. Michael Perskin here on Sirius XM81. And we just had a nice conversation with Mary Fran Thaler from the Hebrew Home. And we have one of her colleagues here now, Jennifer Flood, who's a registered dietitian. And she is the Director of Nutritional Services at the Hebrew Home in Riverdale. Jennifer, welcome to the Healthy Aging Show. Thank you for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
So seniors who stop eating or eat only a select group of foods or suffer from the effects of obesity, those are the people that we focus on with nutritional counseling, but folks don't get it in the outpatient world. Now, when they're in a subacute facility or in a skilled nursing facility such as the Hebrew Home, you guys provide those services for folks. But I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about the scope of the problem in seniors and what's your view on what are the big issues?
Sure. Well, as we age, we do see a lot of nutrition-related issues. At times, we will see issues related to obesity, but more likely we see issues related to weight loss, unintentional weight loss, and trying to sustain a person's weight status that's healthy for them. We also might see, as people age, chewing and swallowing problems, issues with dry mouth. A lot of times as we age, we have to take a lot more medications, which is called polypharmacy. And with polypharmacy, we often can experience the negative side effects of different medications. Sure. That can cause nausea, vomiting, dry mouth, and
also, people who take a lot of pills tend to have multiple diseases, and that can affect our appetite and our nutritional state as well.
Absolutely. And a negative appetite, eventually will cause an unintended weight loss and can eventually, domino into a pressure ulcer and possibly a fall. So it sort of, can be the beginning of a series of events, a downward trend for somebody as they age.
And what are some of the things that folks can look for in their relatives, in their parents, and their neighbors, which would make them suspect that the person isn't getting enough food?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's important to know what their abilities are. And if you start to see a decline in their ability to care for themselves, it's probably likely that they're, having challenges with obtaining food at the supermarkets and preparing their own foods at home and may need assistance on that front. The obvious is weight loss, which a lot of times it may be a little harder to see in an older person. Sure. Because they tend to bulk up with a lot of layers. But, if you do see weight loss, it's important to look into why this person is losing weight. Are they trying to lose weight, or are there circumstances that are, things that are contributing to their decline in weight status? Are they having, when you're with them, are you seeing any trouble while they're eating? Are they coughing during meals? Are they drooling? Are they pocketing foods? Things that don't look normal to what you and I would be doing at a mealtime.
Right. Now, once you've identified folks and you want to feed them, or let's say you want to do some prevention, are there special things about people when they get older that they need to eat differently, more protein, less fat, vice versa? What's different when you get older?
Well, it really depends. It depends on, the disease states that you may be dealing with. As we age, some people do have protein malnutrition and may need additional protein in their diets. They may have pressure ulcers or wounds that may warrant needing an increase in protein. And then on the other side, we have residents or we have patients that may have kidney problems, diabetes, hypertension, different diseases that may warrant more limitations on the food you eat, less protein in their diet, less salt in their diet. I think it's most important to really individualize a meal plan that works for them.
And this is what you would do as a nutritionist, as an RD. You would take into account the diseases in the patient's height, and things like that and age and come up with a kind of specific plan?
Absolutely. I mean, as somebody ages and we start to see some of the negative side effects of aging, such as undesired weight loss, we actually look towards a much more liberalized approach to diet planning, not focusing so much on the disease state itself, but focusing on the person individually and trying to come up with what they enjoy, what they like, and try to move away a little bit from, limitations that a lot of diets place on them.
Like a lot of things, people get into habits as they get older. And so people who are picky eaters, what does that do as folks get older? Does that kind of ring any bells for something special? Folks are real picky about what they eat.
We do find a lot, in particular with residents that have some forms of dementia, that their intake can be very, very unpredictable. They do tend to do much better with smaller, more frequent meals as opposed to the 3 larger meals. We definitely see that they do better with colder, sweeter items like milkshakes, ice creams, almost like dessert items. So if you reach a point where, conventional foods, traditional meals are not working, don't limit the foods that they really do well with, because we see that those are the ones that are consumed best. Also, we do see with the dementia population, they like to drink more than they like to eat. So, making milkshake smoothies, whatever you can do to, get the nutrition into them, even if it's through a shake, is beneficial for them.
Sure. Well, Jennifer, what we're going to do is we're going to invite our listeners to call in. This is Dr. Michael Perskin on the Healthy Aging Show here on Sirius XM 81. We're speaking to Jennifer Flood, who is the Director of Nutritional Services at the Hebrew Home for Riverdale. At Riverdale, I guess, and we're talking why is it important for seniors to be healthy, eat healthy, and maintain their nutritional health. If you have a question or comment, why not, or you're concerned about a relative, especially if you've seen someone you haven't seen for a while, it's the holiday time, why not give us a call here on the Healthy Aging Show? You can do that by calling 877-NYU-DOCS. That's 877-698-3627, or you may send an email to docs@SiriusXM.com. Now, Jennifer, we talked a little bit about people being on a lot of medication, but what happens to our sense of taste normally as we get older?
Well, normally as we age, we do lose some of our taste buds. Typically the salt is one of the first to go. And I think one of the reasons we see a lot of older people still enjoying or having that sweet tooth is because our sweet taste bud is the last to go. So sort of like when we're children and we enjoy the sweet taste of breast milk, I think we enjoy sweet food items as we age. And because we lose the ability to taste the salt, a lot of seniors find that foods are bland and they're not enjoying it, so we really have to learn to spice it up with different spices that will allow them to taste again.
Sure. Okay. So that's great practical advice. So let's read a couple of emails, Jennifer. And this one is from Justine, and she writes, "My grandma lives with us for the last few years. She's 85, and she eats the same thing every day. Mom makes her a salad and fruit shakes, and then she has a chicken sandwich. It's the same thing every day. Is that okay?" So that's a great question, Justine. Jennifer?
Well, I would say if it's not broken, don't fix it. I mean, if it's working for her and she's able to sustain her weight with it, I think that it's fine. If you're seeing that there's boredom with it and she's pushing it away, you can definitely try to introduce some variety to it. But, if she's doing well with that meal plan, a lot of times it's, if you try to veer away from what's working, you may find negative outcomes. If you do want to try a little bit more variety, you may want to add some more fruits and vegetables into the smoothie to gain the nutrition through that forum rather than on the plate.
Yeah, and Justine, what I would add from the physician perspective is, you could write that diet down. This would be real simple to get just one-shot analysis from a nutritionist. They could easily calculate how much protein and carbs and fats in the diet if it seems like you're getting enough vitamins and enough calories.
Right.
And then, basically what Jennifer said, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And it's always been something that's puzzled me. So, when human beings start out life, and animals through their whole lives, right? At least domesticated animals. We feed them the same thing. So you have this little baby, you bring home from the hospital, and everyone's crazed. They got to be fed every 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is. They got a schedule, and they got, if they're on formula or breastfed, there's an amount, and you're trying to gauge the amount, and people can be very committed to this. They want the timing, and when the kids are a little older, even they've got to eat at this time, and there's a fair number of parents who are pretty rigid with that stuff.
Oh.
It seems like a human need to do that, and the kids will be fussy if they're not fed at 6 p.m. exactly. And yet, as we get older, we just add more and more variety, and everything changes. And then, as a doctor, and this is what I'm getting to, people then come in and, they got a stomach ache and their bowels aren't regular, and it's like, well, how could they possibly be regular? You're eating different things at every meal, every day of the week. And I actually am sort of surprised that more people don't do this and have kind of the same thing to regulate themselves.
I think it's a good point, and I think, like you mentioned, there are a lot of apps out there. There are a lot of websites where you can input the diet that you're providing and see if it's deficient in some of the nutrients. And you could always supplement with a multivitamin with minerals if you felt that there were certain vitamins or minerals that your grandmother wasn't getting through the same foods that you were giving on a daily basis.
Right, but it sounds like salad and fruit shakes. So there's some
right, fiber,
chicken sandwich. It doesn't mention if there's any vegetables on that, but there could be, right?
Right.
And, sounds pretty good. Not too high fat. Sounds like it's probably...
Exactly, and there's no negative outcome, and she's doing well with it. If you are going to try to introduce, I would suggest just introducing one food item at a time and not overwhelm with so many different items.
Yeah, I would just want to know why this person, how they got there. I can tell you I myself personally ate the same lunch every day for about 3 years.
I eat the same breakfast every day, and I like a lot of foods, but it's just the breakfast of choice. So I think we are creatures of habit, and this is very common amongst people of all ages.
Yeah. It's interesting. Okay, well, we're going to read another email, and we'll also take some phone calls. So if you have a question about nutritional issues in the elderly and seniors, I'm speaking with Jennifer Flood here on the Healthy Aging Show on Sirius XM 81, and you can give us a call at 877-NYU-DOCS. That's 877-698-3627. And Emily sent us an email, which you can also do by writing docs@SiriusXM.com. So Emily writes, my mom lives in a lovely home, and they cook all the meals for her. I guess she means a nursing home. But on days that she doesn't like what they cook, she simply won't eat anything at all. She'll just drink a soda. Is this okay? She's 85 years old, slightly underweight, and has Alzheimer's. So Jennifer?
Well, I don't know that soda would be my choice of what to take when she skips a meal. I think a supplement might be a better choice. You will get more nutrition out of a supplement, more vitamins, more minerals. I would also suggest speaking to the staff at the home. Most places do provide alternates. They have a variety of items available at all of the meals, and maybe it's just a matter of tweaking her Cardex or her, computer program to account for the foods that she doesn't like, so that, she gets foods daily that she does enjoy. If she enjoys the soda, I'm not suggesting that you remove it, but I would say in lieu of a meal, you might want to look at a supplement instead.
Yeah, also because Emily writes that she's, her mom is slightly underweight, so that's a little concerning for me. It's an area of concern.
Absolutely.
So, I think that would be the leverage.
I would begin by working with the institution on figuring out the foods that she's not doing well with. They always have alternates available, and coming up with a plan so that she's not skipping the meals. Sure.
Okay. So here's an email from Brett, and Brett writes, I overheard you talking about eating in seniors, And I'm curious, my wife, who's 72, is constipated, and it seems to be a recent thing. We tried some medicines and stool softeners, but could this be caused by her diet, and can we fix this with her diet? So, Brett, that's a great question. Jennifer, you want to give your perspective?
Sure. Constipation can definitely be caused by diet, but it's not always diet alone. Constipation as we age can be caused by, decrease in mobility. I would also say if there's been a change in her medications recently, that is a common side effect with certain medications. So, there are multiple factors that could contribute to constipation. Adding fiber to the diet would be my suggestion, but add it slowly. Fiber can be very uncomfortable if you try to add too much too quickly, and whenever you do add a little fiber to the diet, always make sure you get adequate amounts of fluid with it so that it'll be effective. But do it in slow, small, gradual steps so that, she doesn't have negative side effects from getting too much fiber at one time.
Yeah, Jennifer, I agree, of course, with what you said, and I will give you a few other physician perspectives. So if it's a recent thing, first of all, a couple of things have to be excluded diagnostically, the most pressing of which would be if there's a change in bowel habits. In some people, you would want to exclude an obstructive lesion like a colon tumor of some sort. Now, presumably your wife, Brett, has had a routine screening colonoscopy at some point after age 50, and at age 72, she theoretically should have had two of them by now, one at 50, 60, and 73. So hopefully that's up to date. If not, you might consider that. That'd be number one. Number two, there are some medical conditions and many medicines, and you don't tell us about what her medical history is, but if it hasn't been worked up, thyroid disease is fairly common. It can have an onset, particularly in women in that age group, and can cause constipation as a prominent feature. So, that'd be a blood test. And so you certainly would want to talk to someone about this. And, of course, an exam would be important. And there are other medical causes, some of which are quite common, that can cause the constipation. Then there's a list of medicines that cause it, which Jennifer spoke about. The big ones are things that are what are called anticholinergics, or that help dry up fluids in our body. And then, the item Jennifer spoke about fiber, which clearly is the additive. But and you mentioned mobility, Jennifer, but I think that can't be stressed enough. And I would add to it. So, it turns out that it's not just mobility, but, you need muscles to kind of go to the bathroom. So, doing some muscle work with your abdominal muscles can be very helpful with this. And assuming that you're otherwise healthy and don't have bad arthritis or a neurological condition, there's no reason why you can't do some abdominal exercises to help kind of move things along. And walking gets to some of those, and that's why it helps. And, taking a walk after dinner, as an example, is a good prescription, stuff like that. So, Brett, thank you for your email, and thank you, Jennifer. Let's get another email. We got a lot of emails today. And this one is from Patty, and she writes, "My dad is 89 and in failing health. He has Alzheimer's and heart failure, and we all know his days are limited, so we're trying to make him comfortable and happy. He loves his glass of whiskey at night before bed, but the docs say to cut it out. Seriously, he loves his nightly whiskey. I'm inclined to ignore the docs and let him have it. Is that okay?" Jennifer?
I'd have to know a little bit more about why the docs are suggesting that you don't give the whiskey. There are some medications where alcohol is not recommended, so I'm not sure if that's sort of their suggestion based on, his condition and his medication. Having comorbidities like Alzheimer's and congestive heart failure is very, very challenging. I would say from a dietary perspective, if he's more end stage, that you're right about making him comfortable, allowing him some pleasures. Although low sodium is definitely the recommended diet for people with congestive heart failure, we do want to enhance his quality of life, so I would provide him the foods that he enjoys and that will really make him happy at this point in his life.
Yeah, Patty, I'm going to be a little more blunt than Jennifer, and I I get a little more latitude because I'm a doctor, and also Jennifer, it's her first time on the show, so she's being particularly polite. So, Patty, to me, this question, you actually give the answer. So it boils down to what is the goal of care. So if the goal of care is to keep your dad comfortable and happy, well, what does that mean the goal of care is not? It sounds like you guys have a realistic expectation that his remaining life expectancy is not long. So the main reason I could think of, based on reading your email, is that the doctors are worried about the heart failure. Although Alzheimer's and alcohol don't mix well, if someone is pretty advanced and they're well cared for and having a little alcohol, is it going to really poison their brain too much? Might make them a little less cognitively intact than otherwise. But the heart failure, arguably alcohol is a direct cardiotoxin, and even in a small dose, it might tip someone over into being a little unstable in the heart failure. Now, that doesn't mean it's necessarily cut out, because it's kind of a trial and error thing. So I would, my advice to you, Patty, from the doctor point of view, is to have a goals of care discussion with the doctors, because you guys have to agree on what the goals of care are. And sometimes the doctors don't have a shared understanding of what the goals of care are. So you got to get everyone on the same page, and that's how I would approach the doctors. I think there has to be someone who is in charge. It may not be the cardiologist, it may be his longtime primary care or doctor or geriatrician, but you or your dad or both have to pick a doctor to be in charge, because you may get disagreement if there's more than one doctor involved. So you got to say who's going to really be, the principal. And that's number one. And number two, you've got to have a goals of care discussion. So that's my advice. Jen, do you want to make a few comments about alcohol use as people get older? A little bit in general.
Sure. Alcohol is generally not recommended in the elderly, especially in larger amounts. Because it can increase their inhibitions, it can increase their risks of falls, it can deplete them of some of their nutrients. Although, like you said, if there's somebody that has had a drink every night, and this has been their long-standing habit, I would hate to impose on that and stop that at this point in their life if it provides quality of care. So I think it's, there's a bigger picture to it, and you really have to look at the overall, everything in small amounts in moderation can generally be, planned into a day's worth of a diet.
Right, and I think the real recommendation from people who are addiction specialists is after age 65 you're supposed to limit yourself to one drink a day, but people have variable acceptance of that limitation, and this is not an uncommon situation as Patty writes about. Sometimes older people, if they have a drink every night, that's very important to them. It's part of their habit and routine of life. And if everyone's willing to accept it, you may actually shorten your life by doing that. That might be okay. I mean, it's hard, it doesn't sound so great when you say that out loud, but that's actually the reality. So Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a real instructive discussion about nutritional needs of our senior population, rapidly growing, and some of the work you do at the Hebrew Home. And I'd also like to, again, thank Mary Fran Thaler. We talked about post-acute rehab services and other post-acute service needs. And, of course, we spent an hour with my colleague, Dr. David Rappaport, talking about the ins and outs of sleep medicine. And these are really the main things that people do, right? They eat, they sleep, and they move around. So we really sort of covered the waterfront on today's show. And for our listeners, thanks for your calls and emails, and we will speak on the next time at the